You're listening to Science Coast with Mallory Havens and
Chris White.
welcome back.
So this week, I want to talk about my cold. So
That's what we're here for, Chris.
thank you. I appreciate it. I like the support. Anyway, yeah, over the weekend, I started feeling a little bit down and had some symptoms, stayed home past couple of days. Feeling better now. Thanks very much. Thanks for asking. But
I didn't ask.
Well, I was talking to our listeners.
Oh, okay.
They were
All
asking.
right.
I could hear them through the radio saying, "Hey, are you feeling better?" I'm like,
I'm glad to know you're feeling better, though.
"Thanks so much. Appreciate that." I wondered if you could help explain some things about viruses.
I'd be happy to. So first of all, do you think viruses are alive?
Oh, you would go right there, wouldn't you? I'm going to say yes, because they reproduce. They can figure out how to get me to reproduce them.
They don't meet the definitions of life.
Damn it.
So no, they are not technically alive because they can't do any metabolism, any reactions on their own. They can't reproduce on their own. Viruses are minimally just composed of protein with genetic information inside. That's it. A shell with genetic information.
How are they so successful?
Because they put that genetic information into the cells of other species.
Oh, wait. So they put their information into my cells, their DNA. So you're saying that it's just a wrapper with protein on the inside, and then somehow I got it inside my body.
Other way, it's protein wrapper with genetic information on the inside. A lot of human viruses are RNA based instead of DNA. And as we've established, RNA is the boss.
All right. What's the difference between RNA and DNA?
So DNA is what's in your actual genome. It's the double helix. There are a lot of molecular differences, like the sugar backbone is different. Some of the one of the nucleotides is different. The structures they can form, RNA can act like a protein, function as an enzyme, carry genetic information. And it's an intermediary between DNA and proteins.
So it's far more versatile from a molecular perspective.
It is, but it is far less stable, which is why the genome is probably DNA and not RNA.
All right. Can we get back to my cold?
Yeah.
Okay. So at some point last week, I probably was exposed to some cold viruses, probably in the public, unless my cat gave it to me.
Rare for interspecies exchange.
Well, especially because the cat never goes outside. So, and so I got it inside my body, and it somehow got inside one of my cells.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you tell me what happened after that?
So viruses tend to bind to a very specific cell type. So there are receptors on our cells that are tissue type specific, cell type specific, and viruses tend to bind to one particular cell type receptor. And then we have mechanisms to take in large particles into our cells, phagocytosis. Usually what happens in those situations is we fuse them with an organelle that's going to break them down, whatever the contents are. But viruses have escape pathways. So they're able to not be digested, and they kind of unshell themselves and put their genetic information into our cells and then just enslave our cells to be little viral factories.
So the little protein wrapper is really just like a cloak, like a shield.
To allow it to bind to cells and get in.
So okay. So the protein wrapper around the genetic information is used to escape our usual defenses. It's like a secret pass that gets works its way into the cell, and then once inside the cell, it can take the cloak off, and then the DNA information gets incorporated into our cells, and then it takes over because the DNA information is kind of like computer code.
Yep.
It tells the cell what to do.
Yep. And then they don't bring a lot with them. If it's an RNA virus, it brings an enzyme to allow it to turn its RNA into DNA, because our whole system's DNA based. So in order to get genes expressed from the virus, you have to go back to the original template, which is DNA. But it basically uses all of our own energy, all of our own molecules, everything that's already there. It brings basically nothing and just takes over the city of the cell.
So what is the ultimate goal that the virus has? Like when it takes over our cell, what does it want the cell to do?
Replicate it. That's it.
And does it have to be more than that? Because if it replicates itself inside my body, it doesn't really do anything.
I picked up on that phone ringing. It's somebody telling us to stop and we're wrong. No, I'm kidding.
Is it the thought police?
Can you repeat your question? I got very distracted by the phone.
I'm sorry. So we were talking about how when the virus incorporates itself into the cell and tells the cell what to do, and its goal is to reproduce itself, but it can't just reproduce itself inside my cell because then it's stuck inside the cell. How does it then get out of the cell and into somebody else?
Well, for us, so some viruses, depending on the species they're infecting, just fill the cell with viral particles, self-assembled, until it completely explodes and it just releases them out. Usually for us, what it does is use our exit pathways, exit cytosis.
Exit pathways?
Yeah, we have ways to get like large particles out of our cells.
Like sneezing?
Actually, all of your mucus, like your snot, does get out of your cells via exocytosis. So kind of like sneezing, but more like boogers.
Okay, cool. So I've got all these boogers running around.
No, what it does is kind of pinch off part of your cell membrane. Often viruses are enveloped in humans where they have part of our cell membrane on top of their protein coat, but it's from our own cells, so they put on like a second coat on top.
Oh my gosh.
But they're able to just kind of pinch their way out and then travel and find another cell to bind to. And when you sneeze, you spray viral particles into the air or onto surfaces, and depending on how stable the virus is, somebody might be able to catch it from inhalation. You might have to have contact, like, touch a surface where someone had sneezed and then bite your fingernails, something to that effect. It just depends how well the virus is at transmission.
All right, so let's get back to my cold again. So,
because this is really all about you.
Hello, we said that up front.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Okay, so the virus gets in my body. It takes over some of my cells. The cold virus is probably specific to respiratory cells.
Yes.
And as opposed to, for example, blood or bones or some other types of cells, and starts replicating. And at some threshold of reproducibility, it's enough cells in my body have been infected that I start having symptoms.
Right. So symptoms often, or a lot of symptoms of viral infections, are our immune system trying to fight it off. So our immune system causes symptoms while it's helping us.
Wait. Our immune system, like my own body, is causing me to experience bad symptoms?
Yes, because it's trying to help you.
Well, wait, isn't that what fevers are about?
Yeah, that's what fevers are about. So like increasing your body temperature in a fever so that reactions go faster, and producing excess mucus to try to get particles out of your system. Inflammation in general is a major part of the immune system fighting any pathogen. And so then you're like, that's my impression of somebody with a really bad cold. And, like really swollen sinuses. Like just go with me on it.
Okay. By the way, just for the record, that wasn't me, but
that was just like a really swollen face trying to talk through it. Okay. So inflammation has a huge impact on how we feel. And then also if you have enough cells that are infected, they can't do their normal function, which can impede those aspects of your body. But a lot of things with, say, COVID, where people were dying, it was their massive immune response was inflammatorily filling their lungs with fluid, trying to fight the virus, which then resulted in not being able to breathe.
Something is triggering this notion of histamines and antihistamines.
Yes, that's part of the inflammatory response. So when you have allergies, why people take antihistamines is you're trying to block inflammation, because our cells release those to start the inflammatory process when they detect a pathogen. So they're trying to fight it. And that's our innate immune system that just fights things in general, while our adaptive immune system is learning about it so it can fight that pathogen specifically.
So what we're trying to do by taking potentially, antihistamines is to control, to put a lid on the immune system so that it doesn't cause more damage to our body than necessary as it's trying to fight off this virus. Right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because the immune system has one job, and it's to kill pathogens. And sometimes it's like, sorry, buddy, you're going to feel pretty bad while I do this, but I'm going to save you overall.
Cool. Okay. So what triggers the immune system to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm infected?
We're constantly surveying our bodies. We have immune cells that are looking at our own cells to see if something's wrong with them all the time. And they'll kill our own cells if they're infected or if they're cancerous. Our cells essentially wear little ID tags on them that we look for to make sure they're in the right location. So, like, you can't have a fake driver's license in the liver if you're a kidney cell, you know?
Kind of sounds like a police state.
Well, that's the analogy I'm using. And then also when you have a viral infection, viruses tend to have your cells put viral proteins on the surface. So our immune system can detect that there's proteins that shouldn't be there. And so it will start attacking those cells. And when viruses are in our body fluids, so have been released from cells, that's when like your antibodies come into play. And antibodies don't kill viruses, they mark them to be eaten.
So is that part of how I develop immunity to something? Because I know, like with chickenpox, once I've had it, then presumably I'm not going to get sick from chickenpox again. Is it because the body has basically, it's got the picture of the chickenpox virus up on the wall, and whenever it sees one, it just goes right after it?
Yeah, we have immunological memory. So anytime you've like had an infection by something, your adaptive immune system learns about it. It saves memory cells in order to be able to attack it more robustly the next time, so that it can have such a large immune response so quickly you avoid symptomology.
Where do those cells get saved?
They're saved in all sorts of places in our body, but a major place like lymph nodes.
Okay.
So we also have, like, you can detect antibodies like just in circulation, because we're constantly like surveying for things.
So this is another explanation for why, symptoms are not necessarily correlated directly or overlap immediately with, when I'm potentially infectious. So,
right.
So when I'm infectious, when the virus is actively multiplying and I can share the virus with other people, isn't necessarily the same as the symptoms. So right now I'm beginning to feel better. It may be that the virus has already been expelled from my body and I'm just recovering from the damage that my body did to itself in fighting off the virus.
Or your viral load is too small to like transfer to another person.
I'm on the tail end of all that.
Yeah, exactly. So the immune system is an amazing thing, and it's the only thing keeping us alive. Really? Well, it's not the only thing keeping us alive.
I thought it was Cheerios.
Well, that might be keeping you alive. Mine is hard-boiled eggs. Yeah, so...
And some Greek yogurt.
Tasty. But I'm allergic to dairy, so...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, how dare you?
Sorry.
Yeah, so viruses do wreak a lot of havoc, and they've been around for as long as we've known. Like throughout history, you can detect viruses. They can jump into our population from not having been there before, from different species. That's what happened with COVID-19. So new viruses are always the most dangerous because there isn't herd immunity. Were you aware because you had chickenpox, you're susceptible to shingles?
I've got the shingles vaccine now.
Well, that's just to remind your body about the virus so it can keep suppressing it. But do you know how chickenpox and shingles are correlated?
I do not. Please tell.
So after you've had chickenpox, the virus remains inside your neurons for the rest of your life. And if you become immunosuppressed from age or sickness, from some other reason, then it can stop being dormant and come back out in the form of shingles. So It's just the chickenpox virus. It's like, I've been here all along.
Okay. So what you just said is that sometimes the body will expunge the virus completely, and other times it simply suppresses it, but it's still there in the body.
Yep. Just like if you've had mono, it's still there.
Wow.
A lot of things, like not a large percent, but a percent of cancers are thought to be from viral infections because they incorporate their genomes into ours and they live with us for the rest of our lives.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Sorry.
No, it's actually, I mean, this notion of self, right? This DNA self, who I am based on my DNA. And my entire life, there are all of these other competing factors that are interjecting in some sense or combining or merging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to think about that. You come out as a brand new, fresh baby, and immediately you're starting to be populated by microbes because it's supposed to be sterile in the uterus. You come out, then you start getting your internal digestive tract populated, your skin populated. You have different microbiomes if you were born by C-section or not. They have seen, at least in some studies, as you get viruses, they might stick with you for the rest of your life. If you're a woman and you've had a child, that child has released stem cells into your body and they have implanted in your organs and become part of them. So if a woman's had a son, she has male neurons in her brain from her son. And her daughter too, but it's easier to detect the Y chromosome.
Wow.
Which I find very offensive. Like, nobody gets to leave DNA in me.
I think it's too late.
It is. Also, viruses have left it and like whatever, you know. So
I thought we were just going to talk about my cold today.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thanks.
This has been Science Coast with Mallory Havens.
And Chris White.
Have a good one.
Bye.